Welcome. This is Astrology Insight Now. It's a weekly forecast program with astrology and a guided meditation activation to help you make the most of your week and to heighten confidence for daily life. It's run by Pamela Cuccinell, that's me, the astrologer, and Susie Mazzoli, Master Healer. We invite you to find out more about our individual work, Susie Mazzoli, susiemazzoli.com, or insightoasis.com for astrology. We look forward to your joining us every week. Please share with your friends. Here we go.
Welcome everyone. Pam, what's happening? And then I'll be back soon with our meditation.
Well, on Monday, the sun enters Leo. And Leo is a fixed sign, which means it's in the middle of the season, so it sustains that energy. It's a fire sign, and it's highly creative energy. That is the overall umbrella of what's shining over the next 30 days. So basically what's happening is we've got the moon in Aquarius, but with the sun at early degrees and the moon has already been moving along, we won't have that full moon in Leo until later in the month. So what's going on now is that moon in Aquarius is buzzing. There is a lot of energy about networking, connecting, not connecting. There can be a sort of intensity of polarization where, oh, okay, I'm attracted to this idea and you're attracted to another idea. No, that doesn't work. So that is affecting certain things, but not overly intensely. It shouldn't carry on through the day, although what is really important is meeting discussions where you can. Because the sun has moved into the sign of Leo, it is in opposition to the planet Pluto. And Pluto, as you may recall, just starting its move through Aquarius, which will last for quite some time. And what's happening with that is Pluto is retrograde. So there's this kind of tug occurring where we're feeling this need to shift things radically. The huge question is, what is the radical shift? And that changes based on what your opinions are or feelings about what is radical movement from where we are today. And this is true for an individual, and it certainly is true for the greater collective. We're seeing this all around the world, real push-pull of this is the way to do things. No, this way is antiquated. We need things to be more insular, and it's pull, push, pull, push. So today can have a lot of that energy. It doesn't have to be negative, but it is very much about confrontation and delineation. I think the important lesson over the next day, this day into tomorrow, is that we understand more dimensionally when we soften the edges. It may be hard to soften the edges today, but every attempt is, as I'm always saying, a practice. We are practicing to get better at real opening into understanding of the full perspective. But it's hard to do when And I can be as tunnel visioned as the next person. It's not like I have, like wide open understanding of everything. But I do know on this particular day, many of us will be challenged with people who don't necessarily see things the way we do. And this can be in intimate situations, spousal, familial, work relationships, and it can also be wider confrontations. The thing that's going to get us through and triumphing over the next year is the art of real understanding, conversation, and softening the edges. And whether we can do it or not, the energy is available at times for us to make that work more effectively, but it all depends on where we stand with needing the ego to be heard. And with the sun in Leo, over this next span of time, there will be a big emphasis on I see it this way. And so soften the edges. Today certainly can be productive. It is a day where the emphasis needs to be on communication. Are we communicating effectively? Are we really understanding one another and how we need to communicate? And is our message really being delivered? Are we being heard, or are we simply moving muscle or imposing ideas on? Tuesday the 23rd, the moon goes void of course at 5:58 a.m. When the moon is void of course, we are best served by not starting anything new. We are better served by organizing, putting things in place, planning what we are doing next, getting rid of things that are in our way. So the moon enters Pisces at 9:23 a.m. And now we're in much easier energy to, as I said, soften the edges. The moon in Pisces wants us to make available other people's thoughts, but also how we can pass across our thoughts as well. Think of Pisces, it's water, it's mutable, it goes through the cracks, it moves around the rocks, it seeps into the soil. So that energy is all about, how do I get in? How do I reach this? How do I make it happen? And again, Susie and I emphasize this a lot, and this is a good day to do it, as is tomorrow, Wednesday. These are fabulous days to sink into pure creative energy, things that are therapeutic, all the meditation arts, prayer work. I will mention midday, temperatures can rise. People may be very feel wronged or need to express something. There's a shortness, a sense of grievance, or wanting to force certain ideas or things to get done. And I one of the things, again, having historically been an artist and done different things with crafts and working things, household things, it's you don't, when something's difficult to move, it can be something you're trying to push or manipulate in wood or clay or something that needs to be adjusted, and it's not cooperating. Shoving or pushing it can make it brittle and break it. So the art is figuring out how to get the thing to do what you need it to do, but not break it. And I had an early childhood lesson that's made me kind of rabid about not forcing things, whereas my husband is like, bang, just kind of push it. And I think, okay, yeah, all right, fine. Now I'll either have to fix it or live with it. So, so this is a day, Tuesday the 23rd, when that kind of intensity can come up, especially midday, and you decide if you want to just force it or if you're willing to continue to work with what you need to do to move past the I need to force this to happen. Because if we move past that like anger, because that's where it comes from, of course, impatience, then we get to the gravy, which is, oh, that's something I hadn't considered, or let's look at that option. So as we get into late afternoon, evening, and next day, those options really start to open up. And we can really find ways to make the magic happen. And this becomes especially rich after late afternoon Wednesday, that evening into mid-morning of Thursday the 25th. This is a really good time to strengthen intuition, emphasize meditation, and really, really soak up creative possibilities. So the moon goes void, of course, at 10:31 a.m. Eastern Time on Thursday the 25th. And so this is a brief void. What happens at 10:52 a.m. is the moon enters Aries. Now, Aries is cardinal fire. It's very hot. And those of you who've listened to us for a while know that when the moon is in Aries, sometimes Pamela isn't saying, oh, yeah, this is really good and productive, but I am now. And the reason I am now is because with other factors of what's going on in the sky, energetically, Aries is much more supported on these couple of days than in the past when, and it will return to being difficult, of course, because as I said, Pluto's retrograding back to Capricorn, which is also a cardinal sign. So when that happens, when the moon is in Aries, again, we're going to have difficulty, power struggles when that comes up. But right now, we are in the sweet spot with it. And, you know, that can work both ways, because we can think, oh, this is going to be great for me. Well, it may also be great for whoever it is you're at odds with. So the positive of all that, this is great, is that we can meet the person or situation that seems to be so antithetical to what we want to get done. We can meet this over the next couple of days. And so we decide, are we ready to shake hands, find common ground, come up with solutions, or are we just enjoying the fight and the fray so that we're not going to allow that possibility? And I suggest gently that in most situations we are best served, as is the greater good, if we utilize these few days to really set up for success, because we're also approaching the time before Mercury retrogrades. And that period of time, even though Mercury is an interior planet close to the sun, so we consider it a personal planet and doesn't have the clout that a planet like Uranus or Saturn or Pluto would have. But Mercury can, especially now, I think the emphasis on Mercury that needs to be understood is that Mercury was the psychopomp. He was the god who was able to travel between all worlds. He could be in the heavens, he could fly down to earth, he could go in the underworld and then back again. And not all entities at all had that kind of carte blanche, but Mercury did. Mercury had the ability to move between all the worlds. And there's an androgynous quality about Mercury, a perpetual youthfulness, adolescence, that is those kind of in-between stages when right now, with a lot of the conversation, and especially in the United States, because other countries don't even have the freedom to have these kind of conversations, not all of them, but certainly some of them, there's a lot of questioning about transgender or people's sexuality. And Mercury is a planetary energy that reminds us of that kind of fluidity that we have when we're willing to explore all the different realms. And obviously that is not that is not language or conversation that all people are comfortable with at this point in time. So I think when we're in this space, which is allowing conversation and allowing that kind of fluidity, that it's better to emphasize it and sink into it and not just feel the allegiance or comforts with our people, our familiar milieu or tribes that are just going to parrot back or agree with everything we think. These are opportunity days to soften the edges, have conversations, explore different realms, and impart messages. Because again, Mercury, the messenger god, he had the ability to move from the heavens and the earth and deliver messages to the underworld and then bring them back again. And that is also a metaphor for reaching into the darkness, to the things people are afraid of, to the parts of ourselves we don't like talking to, our dark sides. And this can be a very wonderful several days for loving areas of your life, people, situations that are usually difficult to connect to. So on Friday specifically, Aries, terrific energy for starting things. We also want to keep in mind we're in the waning moon cycle, so it may be more advantageous to start things that are already in motion than reinvent the wheel. So to pick things up that you want to run with and really kind of bring to the finish line before we get into that challenging Mercury energy that will happen as we enter the next few weeks. Friday, July 26th, Chiron goes retrograde. Now, Chiron is it's the centaur. Astronomers keep changing the names of some of these things, but it's basically kind of a mix between an asteroid and a comet, and it travels between Saturn and Uranus. So it has a lot of symbolism about how we move into our true individuality and genius from the safety of, I want to be like everybody else. And when Chiron goes retrograde, basically we are revisiting that wound that I want to be like everybody else. So it's another point which seems to me so indicative of how we can really connect to other people very beautifully over these days, over this weekend, because we really have this vulnerability we can tap into. Are you worried about where the world is going? Well, I am too. Is there a way we can work together instead of being at odds with one another? And that's not obviously the direct conversation, but it certainly is part of what it is we're talking about and how we reach and connect. So it can be in intention, even if it's not directly articulated. The moon goes void of course at 6:14 p.m. on Friday, and it doesn't enter Taurus until 1:23 p.m. at on Saturday. So that gives us an evening and morning with a void moon in Aries. So I would just say, work it out, do things physical, do things that make your body feel energized. Dance, run, walk, yoga, martial arts, football, whatever your body is used to doing. Always, you're not going to do something like, whoa, I'm going to attempt this rock climbing and I've never done it before. I wouldn't suggest that necessarily with a void of course moon in Aries. Once the moon enters Taurus, then we are in this lovely, lovely weekend energy that just wants to enjoy, sense, taste, hugs the world around you and connect, connect, connect. And I really emphasize once again, there is more power in connecting and meeting the other and softening and being vulnerable than there is in being untractable. Much, much more power. And now I turn it over to Susie.
Thank you, Pam. And this is such an important point of doing for others. And it is one of the core teachings of what I practice in Tibetan Buddhism, becoming selfless and doing for others. So I think it's a really important meditation for us. And I invite you all now to sit with me as we do this. So just take a few minutes to find that space where you can just be still. Be nice and still for 10 minutes. And as always, sitting up nice and straight. It's best not to lean against something and to hold yourself with a nice straight back. And just allow yourself to relax into that position and just normal, peaceful breathing. And let's contemplate for a moment the spiritual aspect of our lives. And spiritual obviously means something very different to everybody. For some people, there is a very different understanding of what we do when we're acting spiritually. We might have different practices, different religions, but we can definitely all agree that loving kindness and being compassionate is core to being a spiritual person and core to all of the world religions or spiritual practices that people do. And the question is, how much time do we actually spend in loving kindness or in compassionate thought or feeling? And we can honestly say that we spend a lot of time just trying to stay alive, just surviving, just doing our job, looking after our children, keeping our house, our home neat or clean, just basic survival. And sometimes we spend so much time just on how we look, on our clothes or our makeup or the shape of our body or dieting or whatever, the image. And imagine what would happen if we spent all of that time actually on our spiritual practice, on our heart, on developing calmness in the mind, or on simply thinking about others. And we are taught in so many ways to look after ourselves. Most of us, if you live in this world, we are taught to be the best. We are taught to compete. We are taught to gather. We are taught to be successful. We are taught to have lots of money because then we'll be happier and then we'll have freedom. And not so often are we given the space or the encouragement to be always just ourselves, or to be authentic, or to be generous and kind. That it's okay to live simply. It's okay to be in this world and be ourselves, and to deepen into our hearts and to really be loving. This world is very much built on these dualities of right and wrong and up and down and rich and poor, good and bad. We see this absolute split everywhere. We see it in politics. We see it everywhere in our world. So what we can do too is see this very clearly in me and the others. My survival, their survival. What's right for me, what's not right for me. And we can learn very, very quickly to just look out for ourselves. We can learn very, very quickly to find lots of faults in others, lots of faults in the world, lots of problems, lots of issues. But when we really deepen down our awareness, when we look at the world from the bird's eye view, or even from much further out, from a planetary view, or if we go deep underneath all of the layers and go into the microscope and look down at the atomic level and beyond the atomic level at the quantum level, we see that we are all interconnected and interdependent, and that there really is actually an underlying web, a net, a field that we all exist within, that is our connection, and that everything that happens outside of us actually is happening to us as well. As much as we see the reality as differently, everything is also within us. So when we are helping others, we feel good. But we're also helping ourselves. We're helping ourselves by helping others to be in this world. By helping others, by reaching out, random acts of kindness, speaking kindly, making nice comments to people, sharing our wealth, sharing our wisdom, sharing our love, sharing our kindness, sharing whatever it is that we might have learned in this world to be a better person. Everything that we share is always increasing the merit, always increasing the world, always increasing the happiness in the world at large. And we do it, of course, without any expectation of receiving anything in return, not even a thank you, not even a nod or an Oscar award. We do it selflessly, helping others selflessly. And that also really helps us to diminish our big egos that we are the center of the universe, our big egos that are clamoring for recognition or clamoring just for survival. How different the world would be if we could all wake up every morning and say, what can I do for others today? What can I do for others that will make this world a better place? How can I wake up into this world with less of my self-cherishing and more of my generosity? How can I wake up into this world and see less separate qualities, less separatism, less duality, and see more of the connection, more of the interdependence, more of the interconnection? And as we are sitting here now in this contemplation, in this meditation, just feel yourself literally that you are a part of a giant network, like the mycelium network of fungi on the planet, that we are all connected. And that when we are helping each other, we are helping the entirety of all of us. Feel yourself literally reaching out in all directions around you with your heart wide open, breathing in and breathing out, and feeling yourself totally a part of this miraculous and beautiful planet that we all share together. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you so much, Pam, for the forecast for next week. Love now.
You have been listening to Susie Mazzoli and Pamela Cuccinell of Insight Now. If you've enjoyed this program, consider a donation. A link for that at astrologyinsightnow.com. We invite you to join us again for next week's podcast. Please share with others who can benefit from insight, and have a stellar week.